Transformers Dark of the Moon comes after one of the most derided movies in recent memory, so the question really is, does it make any attempt to redeem the franchise? Is the juvenile humour toned down? Are the action scenes easier to follow? Or have they just thrown in Leonard Nimoy as a bit of science fiction royalty and called it a day? Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and I am joined as always by Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together every week, we watch a sci-fi movie, and we talk about it. It's quite that simple. And unfortunately, we are working through the Transformers franchise because there's a new one coming out very imminently, only this coming June. So we've been chipping away. And we're on movie number 3 today, which is Transformers Dark of the Moon. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers, if you happen to care in this case, which you probably don't. But just in case you do, we will be respectful of those wishes, and we will start spoiler free. So, yeah, we'll get into it. And you hadn't seen this one before.
No, but I did own it.
You did on Blu-ray? You had the disc?
No, when I first got like Google Play for my whatever, I don't know, for my laptop or something, phone, it just like, here's a free movie. Like for a little while they were just giving away free movies and you didn't get to choose. It would just show up in your library. And it's literally the first thing on my library list.
Joe's so funny about that. It's not even like a physical disc where we have to get rid of all this stock because no one's buying it. It's digital. There's no like stockpile they have to get rid of, and they're still just giving it to you.
I've got like 4 movies that I've never like watched, or some of them I've never heard of it. One's like Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox, some like animated one. One is a Peter Dinklage movie called Rememory, and then I have a random Amityville movie also. They stopped doing whatever promotion thing this was, but like
I've heard of Remember Me. I remember that coming out.
No, it's called Rememory.
Oh, Rememory. Okay, no, never mind then.
Remember Me might be a Sandy Bullock movie.
Fair enough. The title sounded familiar, but there you go. All right, well, this is the third Transformers movie. It came out in 2011, still directed by Michael Bay, still stars Shia LaBeouf, but there is a notable absentee. Next up, Megan Fox is not here.
Well, she was so mean.
She got into some trouble. I don't remember the exact details of this, but she spoke out about Michael Bay or something being a pain in the ass in an interview or something like that, and how she was treated, and it just quickly escalated to not being back for the third movie. So
I mean, didn't he use her like in a movie in the background for one of his earlier films, and when she was like 14 and like in a wet t-shirt or something?
Joe is so weird about you asking. I'm like, I told you this story in the first Transformers review.
I don't think you did. I don't think you told me that story.
I'm sure I did. It's Bad Boys 2. It's Bad Boys 2.
Bad Boys 2.
She talked about how his solution to not... She wasn't allowed to be seen holding a drink because she was under 18, so his solution was to put her under like a waterfall thing.
Yeah. No, I've heard her tell this story on Jimmy Kimmel. And Jimmy Kimmel's like, oh, well, you know how boys are. Ha, ha, ha. And it's super gross. Like, oh. And she just has to like play along like, yeah, I guess. Ha, ha, ha. And, you know, you could tell she's like disappointed that the point wasn't getting across.
Yeah, no, it's like, honestly, yeah, the treatment of Megan Fox around these movies coming out was, you know, it was very one note, and she effectively spoke out against it and then got blacklisted for a while. And then gradually over time apparently she made up with Michael Bay because he produced those awful Turtles movies that she ended up being April O'Neil in, so clearly something got mended at some point. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he was getting into trouble for blacklisting her, so you had to like, no, see, I'm nice, I gave her a role in another movie. See, I'm a nice guy. But she is replaced with Carly, that is the character's name. She is played by Rosie Huntington Whiteley, which is the most posh British upper class sounding name I might have ever heard.
Pretty sure she's a Victoria's Secret model.
She looks like a model. She does. She does not look like an actor. She looks like a model. And honestly, it's kind of distracting in a weird way, because she looks like she's just walked off the runway and into the movie. And there's a moment early on when like Sam's getting ready to leave for the day, and she's got this white dress on and high heels, and her legs are on show, and he's just like in a t-shirt and like jeans or something, and she's got like her leg around him and she's kissing him, and I'm just sitting thinking, something's not right with this. This picture looks weird. Like, this is like a supermodel dressed like a supermodel, and this is, you know, he's went from Megan Fox. He's somehow traded up from Megan Fox to supermodel.
There's a clear, like, well, we can't have Megan Fox here because there's tension between her and Michael Bay, but we got to have a hot lady. So we're just going to replace her with a hot lady. But, like, there's a reason like he and Megan Fox are together, you know, even though she clearly is out of his league. Why that happens a second time is very unclear, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of
like, at least they have this history where they went through, you know, shit together, and that's why they saved the world together, and that's why they're together. But like,
and it is kind of pointed out by his mum at one point that it won't happen a third time, so don't screw this up. And I'm like, that doesn't excuse that you've done it a second time. It doesn't like.
And you know, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, she's a very beautiful woman, but there's something about her. You know that famous British royal painting of the inbred
oh no
family? There's something about her that reminds me of that painting. She looks a little inbred, like a beautiful inbred, but like there's something a little weird about her face that I just makes me laugh.
I'm not touching this with a 10-foot barge ball. I do not want to be cancelled.
I mean, she's a Victoria's Secret model. Like, clearly she's beautiful. But I wouldn't be surprised. Especially with a posh name like that. Come on, you know there was some inbreeding going on in her family.
Look, all I'll say is she looks very generically like a model, whatever that means. But I just look at her and I'm like, you're a model. And, like, you could take from that whatever you want, but that's all I think when I look at her. Her character is barely a character. We'll get into obviously all that stuff.
No, she's a butt.
Well, the first shot of her in this movie is her ass as she's walking up the stairs in her underwear. Butt. Yeah. But yeah, we do also have all the other people are basically back. We got, you know, Josh Duhamel's back, Tyrese Gibson's back, John Turturro's back, the parents are back. We add in some new cast members. We got Frances McDormand, who, despite being probably about 50 or something like that in this movie, is not immune to the perviness of other male characters. More on that later. John Malkovich has got a ridiculous role in this. He's just there for reasons.
Yeah. I was trying to think, like, why are you here when I was watching the movie? And the other thing I think is, like, well, I mean, there's networking going on in the Hollywood all the time, and like maybe these kind of roles are just fun to play for them. Like, they know they're gonna have a nice paycheck and a good time, and like they can, you know, Malkovich especially, he's a character actor, so he can have a lot of fun with these kind of roles, and he clearly is having a good time. But like, I just feel so embarrassed for them.
That's fair. Alan Tudyk's in here in a role that I forgot about, because I did see this movie once before, but I saw it like when it came out.
Again, like, he's playing someone that looks like he would be fun to play, but unfortunately it's for a movie that you have to say you were in.
Ken Jeong, of course, was getting big around this time. He's got a role. So
hilarious. He's hilarious in it.
And of course, Leonard Nimoy is the voice of a new Autobot. Well, he's not new, but he's new in this movie. But he's an old Autobot.
Yeah, boy, do they love having a Star Trek alum.
They do reference Star Trek a few times in this, but it's almost a bit like oddly distracting. And I get that it's a Paramount movie, so they just have access to Star Trek footage if they want to use it. But yeah, there is a scene early on where the two little robots are watching some Star Trek and commenting on it.
Yep. There's an Enterprise comment. I think one of the sound bites that Bumblebee uses is Kirk.
To be fair, I think he used the Star Trek one in the first movie as well. I think I remember pointing that out.
Did. Yeah.
So, yeah. So we got a whole big cast. Lots of characters, some of which just disappear halfway through the movie because they're irrelevant. Some of which are still around later, but it feels like they have a different skill set just to justify why they're around in the last half of the movie. There's just a lot of that going on. We'll get into it, but yeah, I mean, there's no point in really giving you a plot synopsis at this point. It's Autobots versus Decepticons. The humans are around. We'll get into all that in spoilers. I'll just ask the question, Tara, how did you feel about Transformers Dark of the Moon?
I will say this was not as miserable as the last one. I think the last one is probably the lowest for where the bar is going to be.
That is fair.
It seems like he has taken some feedback and said, you know what, I'm going to make it the Autobots and the like a little clearer, so a little bit easier to see. I'm not going to have the camera spinning the whole time. The parents are going to be toned down. So that at least I didn't feel like throwing up the whole time I watched it. But these movies are just, they're not for me. Like, I did not enjoy my experience watching it. But I didn't want to, jump off a balcony. So that was a step
an improvement.
Up. Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely better than Revenge of the Fallen. I think that is a fair statement to say. For the reasons you basically said, it's a little easier to see the action sequences. You can make out at least the moments he decides he wants to be clear. There's more of those at least. There's
a lot of like slow down for the shots and the fights and stuff like that. Yeah.
It doesn't jump around as many like little bits of plot, although it is still overstuffed and too long. And there's like basically everything in the first like hour that has anything to do with Sam, his parents, his girlfriend, like all of it's just fluff until like the plot actually gets moving. Like that's still a problem. Like John Malkovich is a good example. Actually, his entire character is not needed in this movie. He adds nothing to the movie other than just really bad comedy that is not needed for anything. It doesn't advance anything. It doesn't do anything. It's just there. So it just that first half especially just feels really bloated with stuff that just could go away. So that's so it's still a bad movie. There's still lots of problems. There's still lots of things to talk about. One of the problems I had, and I remember feeling this when I watched it, and this was when I wasn't as critical of them when I first saw this, but I remember feeling this way the first time, and I felt it again here, is in the last like hour or so of the movie, which is all the big third act action set piece in Chicago, all that stuff, there's this general feeling of we're following Sam and a couple other humans, and it kind of just feels like whenever the plot wants the Autobots to jump in and save the day, they will, but we never really get much of an indication that they're doing anything else. So it just kind of feels like, well, what are they even? They're just like we jump in to have our big moment. It's almost like a formula where humans get in trouble. There's some tension. Oh no, Optimus or Bumblebee jumps out and saves the day. Oh, right, back to just the humans. All right, build some tension. Oh, they jump out. So there's a little bit of that for me.
I was building a dresser while I was watching it.
Of course you were.
But I thought, well, I still was paying attention to the movie. But during like halfway through the third act, like the big final thing, I was just like, wait, where are all the Autobots? Like I know they're here somewhere.
Yeah, we go long stretches when it. That's the weird thing is, if anything, that's the one moment where it feels like we should be cutting around a bit more and seeing what the Autobots are doing, and we just don't see them for like long stretches. Yeah. So it feels unbalanced.
I do appreciate that the humans seem more like useful during the fight in this one versus the other ones. Like before, it was just Sam and Michaela. I had to think for a second. Sam and Michaela, who are like the only humans doing stuff, and then it was like military, blah, blah, blah. But in this one, like the humans, even though they are still military, but like I don't know, like you're more with them, and they seem more helpful in this one. So like, okay, at least like we get some progression. Like they're learning how to combat in more creative ways against Decepticons now. This is the third time around, so they should.
Yeah, like I've got some thoughts from both ways for that, but I'll save it till spoilers just to talk about the actual details. I kind of agree in principle, but there's also parts of it that I think feel a bit weird. But
Yeah,
I will say the music's still solid. In fact, I will say the music's also a bit better than last time. It felt like there was
yeah.
some
I definitely
new...
noticed the score a lot more in this one because it wasn't just the same track that it is good and recognizable. There's a lot more that like, oh, this feels almost like a new composer because there's like really just new score in it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just one track. Like there was like 5 different themes from the first movie that all came back in the second one, but
Not ones that I really remember or recognized, honestly. Like I know like the main one that comes in all the time, but the hero score,
I mean, to be fair, I do because I just think the first movie's score is pretty solid. Like I think Steve
Oh, I
Jablonsky does
agree, yeah.
a good job of being the sort of Hans Zimmer style composer. And I think it is nice and varied, and there's a lot of different themes to pull. This one, it feels like it does add in some new themes and some new things that mixes in with the old stuff, and it's it's not bad. So, the core problems that were in the first movie are still kind of here. What was funny is that for the first half, I was actually thinking, he's maybe toned down the military propaganda a little bit, right? Thinking, oh, there's less of it in this one. And then I was like, no, he just saved it all for the back half. The back half is just like, but as soon as we get to those wingsuits, I'm like, okay, all right. He was doing delayed gratification for himself. He had the box of tissues ready. He was just waiting.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
What can I add? I need to add one more awesome thing. Wingsuits.
Yeah. But no,
I think
we still...
the movie like kind of is in 2 parts for me. Like there's definitely a turn that happens about halfway through with the character that Leonard Nimoy plays when he's really introduced, and like the whole plot of the movie for me is all in the early part, like the first half before then, and then when Leonard Nimoy gets here, it's just all action fighty bang bang shoot stuff, and I the second half of the movie is just way too much. It's just so much. Like I couldn't believe we were still fighting. I'm pretty sure it's 2 hours of fighting.
What's funny though is that I felt the first like hour or so that you're talking about, like most of it's just fluff. Like I don't think the plot really starts until
fluff.
Leonard Nimoy's character shows up.
It's fluff, but it's like that's where all like the dialogue is and all the setups and stuff, and then like there's a change that happens, and then it's just fighty movie. But not like fun anymore. Like it's just too much. It's just...
Oh, was it? Wait, was it fun? Hold on. Was it fun before? Because it wasn't.
No. I didn't say it was fun before.
You said it's not fun anymore. That implies it was fun before.
I don't think I said that. Maybe I did, but if I did, it's because my brain's broken from watching it.
I suppose I could accept that. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we have the bad humor. We still have both the robots and all the men are all perverts, pretty much. Like I was thinking
there's a Scottish Autobot. Autobot.
What was wrong with the first way you said it?
I said Autobahn.
All right, Autobot. But you're right. Yes, there is a Scottish Autobot that has like few lines of dialogue.
So hey, you're represented in this now. I hope for the big Scottish audience out there.
For the alien robot from another planet.
Yeah, you guys are
Scottish
represented, and just trying to get your vote.
Optimus Prime, I've got to bash in this Decepticon's head before he does anything too bad. What?
Do you think it was just there for like another Star Trek kind of reference?
No, because the other Autobots that this one was working with also had like different English accents. I think it was just like, I don't know, like a bunch of funny accents basically.
Okay.
It's a bunch of accents that Michael Bay thinks are funny. That's all it is.
I kind of thought he was like the engineer of them.
I think you're stretching this.
Maybe I just heard, I hear Scottish accents and I think either movie critic or or engineers.
Well, I'm glad I come first in that list. That's nice at least.
Well, I definitely have more experience with you than I do with Scotty. I only got 3 seasons of Scotty and some movies.
Yeah. Also, not really Scottish, so that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, but like, he nails it. So there's literally no difference between like him and a Scottish person.
Uh-huh.
You sound exactly like him.
No, because if I'm doing a Scotty impression, I'd be like, "She can't take it, Captain." Like, no, it's different.
Yeah, perfect.
But that's not what I normally sound like.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, fine. So, but we still have the problem of like annoying humor, juvenile characters, and I was thinking actually this is the point I was getting to before we went on a whatever tangent you said is down there. I don't even remember what we talked about that. But is that I was actually thinking during this that a part of the reason why a lot of young men probably think it's okay to say really pervy things to women they don't know is because of movies like this. Because every male character, when they see either Rosie Huntington Whiteley, or in Turturro's case when he sees Frances McDormand, like they just say like creepy things that mean I want sex, like just instantly, like some of the comments that are flying thick and fast in this are just like so. It's the sort of thing where if I heard someone say that in real life, I'd be like, "You're a creep." Like what?
Yeah.
Like what are you doing? No one's.
Are you gonna watch this somewhere? Yeah.
Like it would not be acceptable behavior, but they're just throwing these comments around, willy-nilly in this.
I mean, at least Rosie Huntington Whiteley has a line where she says like, "I'm used to it," or something. Men be pervy.
I mean, that should be sad when she says that.
It is. Yeah.
It should be a sad
It's
moment.
sad for the women who are watching. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool that she's not directed to feel sad in that moment. The direction's still telling her to be like, I'm used to it. Oh.
What's her name in the movie? Carly?
Carly, yes.
Carly.
Because
very British name.
It's also the word car with Lee at the
Oh yeah, and she's also into cars.
Yeah, she loves cars. Much like Megan Fox. Like that's the thing about this is that all in a few line of dialogues and like how he met her, like you could totally see that Megan Fox's character could have got this job because it's all about running a car museum. Like you could totally see her character just having this job. So a few lines of dialogue got changed to fit the new actress in, but for the most part, it's just this would have been her role. They did like a quick rewrite just to make it fit. And that's it. Yeah, that's all it is.
Megan Fox. She deserved better.
Yeah. I mean, half the actors in this deserve better, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say all necessarily, but actually, did you notice as well? Like, a lot of this was John Malkovich's character, but like, it's just awkward references to like new things in this. Like, there's like. John Malkovich at one point walks in and goes, "Are you a Twitter tweeter?" or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, Twitter's a relatively new thing right now, isn't it?" And you're referencing it.
Yeah, probably.
This is feeling a bit dated.
Was this 2011?
Yep.
I guess Twitter would have been around still, or for a few years now at that point.
Couple of years, yeah. But I feel like by this point, this is maybe when celebrities were a bit more common to be on it now, maybe. And
yeah, that's probably
like
true.
that.
And promotions for films and stuff.
Yeah.
This is definitely the hashtag era.
Oh, yes.
No one said hashtag, but like,
yes.
It's maybe the next movie.
maybe. Next movie's like 2014, I think. So maybe we'll see an evolution into the next one. Yeah, it's actually kind of absurd that, like, because these movies hit every 2 years until there's a slightly longer gap before the next one, but they got 3 of these movies out with the level of visual effects that they have. They churned those out over the span of about 6 years. Like, they got 3 movies every 2 years. It's kind of nuts how many people had to work in these to get them looking like they do, with the level of like effects fidelity that they have.
Yeah, I mean the special effects are incredible.
But we could have
it's just a bad movie.
we could have cured cancer probably with this level of like manpower that was on these things.
Maybe.
Instead, it was all that power, all that willpower and energy from all these people was all just like diverted into 3 Transformers movies.
Yeah, and we have to get all the Marvel movies and their effects in, and all this manpower is going to special effects. Remember when we watched Close Encounters and the special effects were done by one guy?
That wasn't true, was it? It wasn't just one guy.
Maybe he was like the lead special effects guy, but like I remember just one name popping up under special effects and it made me laugh.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely more people working on them, but yeah, he would have been like the supervisor or whatever, yeah. And then everyone works underneath him.
It would have been like, what, like 4 other people maybe?
Oh, don't get me wrong, yeah. It would still would have been like maybe a room full of people at most versus today where you get to the effects part of the credits and it's just a wall of names scrolling for like 2 minutes, you know?
Oh, gosh, yeah. At least a whole song.
Yeah. That's the thing. See, when you're watching a movie like this, like the one comfort when I see the 2 hours and 35-minute runtime is that at least 10 minutes of its credits. That's the one comfort I have.
This one's like 250 minutes or something.
Your math is terrible. No, I was right. I was 2 hours 34 minutes. There you go.
Oh God, I swear that it was 5 hours long.
That's 154 minutes in minutes for the record.
I swear it was twice that.
It does feel long. It feels like a gauntlet. See, when you get by the time the plot actually gets moving, you've still got like 90 minutes of movie left at that point. And it feels like endless battling, which wouldn't be as much of a problem if you were invested in the characters. And you know, this is right in that era. I always joke and complain about movies that have the third act with the blue beam of light getting into the sky, and that's what the heroes are trying to stop. But this does literally have the blue beam of light.
Yeah, it's got like a Picard season 1 ending.
So. Yeah, there's much to talk about, much to get into. We're probably going to be relatively thorough, I imagine. So,
I don't know how thorough you can be in the last half of the film. It's just all fighty stuff.
I mean, we'll see where the conversation takes us, but I think there's a reasonable amount of set pieces to talk about. So, spoilers from this point on for Transformers Dark of the Moon, you have been warned. The movie begins with Cybertron. We actually see a little bit of like the end of the war on Cybertron. So it's all CG, and this ship was leaving, and it had like technology that the Autobots were going to use to win the war, and it gets shot down though, and we see that it lands on the moon, and
we get Peter Cullen's voice narrating.
We do.
A good start.
Good start. And I think what's interesting about this actually is just because in Bumblebee you see more Cybertron stuff, but the difference is that in Bumblebee it had like the G1 style looking Transformer designs, whereas here it's in continuity with the first movie because in the first movie it established that they're all just sort of generic looking robots, and then when they got to Earth they picked like, you know, trucks or cars and sort of based themselves, and they can sort of change as we've seen as well. But because of that, when we get a glimpse of some of the Transformers on Cybertron at the start, they're just sort of generic silver, you know, they all look the same basically. So I just think it's interesting that in Bumblebee it looks much better though, because it's much more colourful, and Optimus has got his red and blue and all that shit, you know. So but yeah, the opening of this is definitely shooting bigger as far as like an idea goes concept wise, because the opening of this is that the space race, right? So this turns out this is like 1961, 62, something like that. And the whole premise of this is that the space race was inspired because like NASA, and presumably the Russians as well, became aware they could tell something landed on the moon, and that's the race to get to the moon was to go see what the hell it was. Like, we have to find out what landed on the moon. So we get this montage of like a mixture of like, you know, archive footage of the news report stuff, because there's that famous clip of the guy clasping his hands when the moon landing happens, which I know from the teaser trailer from Interstellar, so it must just be a real thing. It's from the time period, but they've got that mixed. They also have like a really bad CGI JFK. I don't know if you noticed this.
Was he CGI or just someone with horrible makeup?
I think it was CG. It looked really weird.
It looked like a mask.
I don't know. It looked CG to me. I mean, maybe you're right, but either way, it looked unnatural. Whatever they were doing this face with, it was unnatural.
Yeah, that's like old like Star Trek makeup, you know, with the one like old man face they had. It's like we can just use that, but put makeup on it so it'll blend in.
They actually did Nixon, because by the time the moon landing happens, obviously it's Nixon, and I think they did a better job with this, because what they did is they had the real news footage of Nixon like on the monitor in the foreground, and then in the background he was out of focus, like as if he was being filmed right there and then. And that kind of worked because you could see the real thing, but then you could also see their actor and out of focus that kind of was mimicking it. So I think that worked better. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I definitely noticed JFK looked a little wonky.
Yeah. So they get up.
They try to Forrest Gump this movie in the beginning.
They have their moon landing. It's like all the famous moments from the moon landing. You know, one small step, blah blah blah, and then it's like, okay, we've got the excuse that you're on the dark side of the moon for like the media. You've got 23 minutes to check out what's there, and it's like Neil Armstrong had this secret mission to check out this Autobot spaceship that landed on the moon, and he finds like the face of Sentinel Prime, and they bring back a little bit of the rods or whatever. And this is something that even Sector 7 didn't know about, which sounds like just retcon nonsense. Like, why would they not know about this? But okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But fine, whatever. So, yeah, that's her backstory.
Super mega ultra top secret.
That's her backstory for this movie. And there's an implication here. So just we'll go to Sam and all that stuff later. I think we'll stick with the actual plot here. Mm-hmm. So there's an implication here that Chernobyl happened, not because of what actually happened at Chernobyl, but because the Soviets were experimenting with a part of like the fuel source of the spaceship at Chernobyl, and that's what caused it. Because we get this whole scene where Josh Duhamel's like talking to a Soviet like scientist, and they come to Chernobyl with Optimus, and they're looking around, and like they find this like energy source thing from the ship. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know that other famous thing that happened, that big tragedy? It was just for Transformers. How cool is that?
Yeah, I love how we'll fit in the moon landing and the Chernobyl disaster. Like,
well, you gotta get the things
this.
in there that people recognize so they can go, ooh, 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 I've heard of Chernobyl.
It's actually kind of surreal watching these scenes of them like arriving in Chernobyl, and they're going through like the buildings and stuff, having watched the Chernobyl miniseries and just knowing a lot more about it.
Did the Transformers worm come out of Reactor 4?
Not that I noticed, but I mean, there were some details that seemed like, they walked past a pile of gas masks at one point that had been left behind. I'm like, oh yeah, that seems plausible. That seemed to fit with stuff, I've learned about it. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They should have explained what happened though with red and blue cards. Otherwise, I can't follow. Yeah. We get That's
introduced.
Such a good show. Everyone should watch that and skip the Transformers franchise.
Oh, obviously, yes. But now they introduce Shockwave, who's this Decepticon who has like an extended big, almost like tremors like tentacle thing that goes in and out of the ground. Like, he has like a main body as well that pops out every so often, but his main thing is that he has this big worm, that goes in and out. And we also see that Optimus Prime actually has like a back of his truck. He has like an actual container back there now, which has his flight pack and his like axe and his shield in it. So he's actually packing some extra heat now.
Yep. I like it. I like when he shows up and he's got like the cloak and stuff. It's cool design.
No, that's Megatron.
Oh yeah, sorry. That's what I thought you were talking about.
That was about Optimus. He's actually got the
Optimus,
yeah, he's actually got the truck back now with the container.
Right.
Yeah, Megatron. Yes, he has like this is like Punish Megatron because he's still injured from the last movie, so he's got like
he's somewhere
cloak,
in Egypt or something. Yeah.
He's just hiding, but he's got a plan. He's got a master plan. It's fine. So yeah.
Good thing he has all these backup plans that have been in the works for many decades.
It's nonsense. Like, was this his plan the whole time? Because it feels like his plans in the last two movies don't really matter that much then, if this was always the plan.
He's just been planting the seeds over the last, I don't know, 200,000 years or whatever on Earth.
It just feels so weird that he had like the whole Fallen thing in the last one, but no, it turns out in this one he had a whole other plan even before that, so it's fine.
I'm sure the next one he'll the Optimus will narrate some opening where he was here, during the bubonic plague and set something up, and it's gonna pay off now in 2014.
To be fair,
only if my first 3 plans fail.
I don't think Megatron's back in the next one, from what I remember. I think he's just...
It's just dinosaurs?
I mean, I don't remember well enough to tell you that, but I don't remember Megatron being there. I think he's done now. Much like Shia LaBeouf and a lot of this cast that are in this, I think they're all done with this one. But so their whole plot gets going. Optimus is pissed that they found this, because this shows that humans knew something about Transformers before they showed up. They go up to the moon, they find Sentinel Prime and these rods, blah 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 blah. All of this introduces Frances McDormand, who's now the person in charge, who comes in barking orders at everyone. She got a paycheck, good for her, I guess. There's not really anything particularly memorable about her character, though.
One for me, one for them, right? That's how actors work.
I suppose so.
She's married to a director, so maybe they're buddies with Michael Bay, and he's like, "Hey, I need someone with prestige in my movie."
I don't know. There's one little interesting detail we see here, which I guess ties into like the third act when we see humans being a bit more effective against Decepticons. Is that like Bumblebee's training with some humans and showing where the weak spots are, so that they if you can get behind their head and like shoot them there, then that's like a weak spot, and then blah blah blah. Like, and we see them training, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of vaguely interesting. Like the idea that it would be nice if there was like a human character like in the team that was being trained that we then cared about and followed. Whereas we don't. We follow Sam, who is the messenger. And actually, this is a neat transitioning point onto Sam shit, because I want to say something here, okay? Sam Witwicky is an entitled piece of shit. That's how I want to start
He's not a likable character.
At the start of this movie, he is frustrated because he has to look for a job, but he saved the world twice. Why should he have a normal job? He's important.
Yeah.
And at a certain point when he's talking to Frances McDormand and she's like, I appreciate that you helped out a couple of times, but you were never the person like saving the world. You were just the messenger. And I think that's the point where the audience is supposed to go, no, that's mean. Now we want him to prove himself. Whereas my reaction was, you're right. You're right. He's useless. He should not be involved in any of this. And then the movie has to go out of its way to show us why he needs to be involved.
He did a pretty terrible job of killing Megatron.
He did.
He keeps coming back.
He kept coming back. Which is why Optimus finally does it in this one properly.
Yep.
He even has a badass line before he does. This is one of the few good things in the movie I like.
Yeah, totally.
He's like, what would you be without me, without me, Optimus Prime? I guess we'll find out. And then rips his head off and his spleen comes out. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it was the second movie where like it looked like the Transformers had blood. Where I don't remember that in the first movie at all, but I remember it in the second film, and I don't think we brought it up in the review. But in this one also, you could see like red splatter.
Yeah. Also in this one, you see the Decepticons killing humans, and they just sort of like pulverize. And there's at least one time where you see a skeleton just land on the ground. Like they're straight up killing people in this one.
Good.
And I guess you get around the R rating because they're just sort of like they're basically going poof like the vampires on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but they're basically just going poof, but then a skeleton or like a skull just lands on the ground. Yeah, there's not a ton of it, but you see a little bit of it during the early third act stuff.
Yeah, we should get some damage.
So
not just building damage.
So yeah, Sam is living with his supermodel looking girlfriend who is also the breadwinner and keeps him for free. So he's looking for a job. He's worried about his parents coming to visit because they'll judge him for not having a job, which honestly feels a bit shitty on their part, or the dad's part anyway, when he's like, oh, that sucks, you don't have a job yet. I'm like, he literally has interviews all day. It's not like he's not looking for one.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like, it's not like he's lounging around.
It's hard to get work right out of college too. You know, you kind of have these big expectations, and then yeah, the interviews are hard to get. So like, actually, it's impressive he has so many interviews. Like,
Yeah,
getting a callback on your resume is hard.
his day is packed with interviews. We get a montage of his interviews. I mean, they all go bad.
Yeah,
but
and they're not like you know, welcome to McDonald's. It's like, you know, real jobs.
yeah, it's actually kind of unbelievable he has this many high-profile interviews.
So I shouldn't say that. You know, working at McDonald's is a real job.
Of course. But yeah, but I got what you mean though. Like, they're all big companies that look like you're going to make a fortune there if you actually get hired, kind of thing. And he has this really self-entitled thing. So they go to like where John Malkovich is the boss, right? And it's this tech company or whatever. And John Malkovich is this over-the-top caricature. He's like he says like an acronym at one point in the scene that really annoyed me. It's like this really, he says like WTF or something like that. It's
Yes, you're right. Something like that.
Something hip for the kids. And all of it's just to show that he's this kooky character, right, that fits into Michael Bay's Transformers world. And he offers him a job, and we find out why later, but he offers him a job for the mailroom, and basically says, look, you don't just walk in and get like a high-paying, like high-level job. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. The job you want's another level up, and that's okay, but you have to go through the first job first. And Sam has this moment where he's like, I saved your life twice. I deserve more than like, and I'm like, am I supposed to like you? I saved your life twice. Like,
well, even his parents are like, you know, we paid for an Ivy League school. Like, why don't you have a prestige job?
yeah, which actually they already pointed out before that they didn't pay for anything. The government paid for his school because he helped save the world.
Oh, well, that's pretty generous.
So the parents didn't even pay for it.
He got the Montgomery GI Bill without going to war.
That's probably why they can afford this big silly tour bus that they're driving around the country in, is because they didn't have to pay for his college.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the mum's back with even more weird, inappropriate, like. I mean, this is later on in the movie, but this is like the last scene we see of them, really.
Oh my god, it's so much more toned down though than
there's not as much, but the one scene that really bugged me with them, because she's got a line early on because they see his car and it's like a yellow with black stripes car, but it's this little banger piece of shit that isn't Bumblebee, because Bumblebee's off doing Autobot stuff, and she's like, oh, it reminds me of Bumblebee if he was a sad piece of shit. Like, all right, it's a bit mean, but
it's also not a terrible looking car. I don't know. It's kind of cool looking and unique.
But
probably it wouldn't pass the emissions test, but
oh sure, yeah. But the scene that I was getting to is the what later on one where he comes in to talk to them because he's sad because he had a fight with her with his girlfriend, and she's like, oh come on, you move from one stone cold hottie to another. There won't be a third, not unless you've got a big, and then he interrupts her, and I'm like,
oh yeah, that's a really weird line.
What mother talks about her son's cock that way? You don't.
Yeah, and like, who gets women just by having a big penis? Like, that's just a lie.
I mean, what's this supposed to do?
That's not how it works. You can get men that way.
Sure, but like, then she whips out a book saying, what was the title of the book? Because
she came first.
She comes first. Yeah. And the image was like it was like a bit of fruit, but it was very, you know, sexual. It looked very.
Lots of innuendo. Yeah.
It was like halved kiwi fruit or something. It looked, you know, like your brain do the work. But
usually papaya is what they use.
Okay, papaya is. But I like. All of this is just this weird, awkward thing that Michael Bay's obsessed with having the parents like talk inappropriately about their son's sex life, and because he thinks that's funny.
Yeah, there's also a line like, you can't just walk in here. This is our bedroom. Like, we might be in the middle of something, or like it was implying that they might be having sex also.
And I'm not saying that you can't have humor in like how a parent addresses their kid about sex. Like, if the
awkward, uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like there's plenty of humor.
There's plenty of jokes to be had, especially. I don't know. It's just the way you deliver it. It's the joke itself and how it's presented. But you know, if the joke is that the parents trying to make them uncomfortable to get rid of them or something, that can be funny, that can work. But you don't get that vibe with her. You get the vibe that she just thinks this is okay to give this advice, and the joke is that he's uncomfortable. Like, you know, it just doesn't work. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the problem is that she doesn't feel like a real person. The humor comes from it feeling like real people, and she does not feel like a person. She feels like a joke spitting out machine that was written in a script.
Yes. Still waiting on those jokes though.
Yeah.
None of them land.
But that's basically it for the parents, right? There's like nothing else.
They have matching outfits.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's them. But yeah, so he goes for his job interview. He gets one with Malkovich, even though he didn't want it because he sees himself above a mailroom job, which, whatever. And then he's just unhappy to be there afterwards. Blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, he meets Carly's boss, played by Patrick Dempsey, who's
Dr.
this
McDreamy.
rich guy who collects cars, and there's a couple of moments here where he's showing off this fancy like German car, and he's talking about the curves and stuff, and the camera's just going up Carly and looking at her figure, and he's like, curvy and sensual, like the perfect woman. And then he looks right at her, and Shia LaBeouf's like, I'm uncomfortable with this. Like, he's a jealous asshole, but I can also not deny that Patrick Dempsey is making lots of eyes at her. Like, there's an uncomfortable amount of like
Yeah.
just, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Grossness.
Ogling? He's ogling her?
Yes, ogling her.
Ogling.
Sure.
There you go. And yeah, so like, yeah, he's unlikable and jealous, but at the same time, like, Patrick Dempsey's also just being a creepy boss who's clearly got motives.
Yes.
Ulterior motives, one might say. So yeah, and this is where the Starship line comes in, because Shia says this is like the Starship Enterprise in here, because the building's fancy.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, sure, it's high tech looking. I wonder, like, if you're Shia LaBeouf, or if you're Sam Witwicky, would you just be suspect of every single piece of machinery? Like if I were Sam, I'd be like, is this microphone a transformer? Is my keyboard going to come alive? Is my TV or my remote, my watch, or anything? You know, I would be so paranoid all the time.
When you started that sentence, I thought you said, if you were Sam Witwicky, would you be like paranoid of every man trying to steal your woman because he's always got like a super hot babe? I get your point though. You know,
being around all these vintage cars, you're like, okay, which one of these is an ancient transformer?
Well, that happened with the planes in the last one. One of the ancient planes ended up being a transformer. In fact, his laptop is one of the little robots, because the one from the last movie is there, plus there's a second one now, so there's like a duo of little robots.
Yeah, the different voice actor, I think, this time. It sounds different.
But they're the ones that have the little dig at Megan Fox, but they're like, oh, that last one was mean. Didn't like her.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as I remembered it being. In my head, I thought they called her a bitch, but this is a little bit better than that, but not a huge
That would be pretty
deal.
unforgivable.
Yeah.
Especially because, you know, you like Michaela coming out of the films. I mean, way more than Sam, anyway.
Oh yeah, relative to Sam, yeah, she's like MVP. give her a trophy. So yeah, that's where all the character stuff is pretty much. And then she gets mad at him because he's obsessed with, like, you know, looking into like Transformer stuff after something happens at work. And it's so weird because the whole movie, she is like, oh, I believe that you saved the world. You're a hero. I love that you've got a medal from Obama. That was like an awkward flashback as well. The way he's like shows off his medal and points at her. I don't know. That was a bit odd. But
yeah, there's also Bill O'Reilly was on TV, like interviewing John Turturro at one point. I'm like, oh, that's before he was fired.
Okay, so let's get the head a little bit, because we have to talk about Deep Wang.
This was supposed to be like Deep Throat, right? Like conspiracy theory. I want to take down.
Well, he literally says that in the scene. He leans in and goes, "It's like Deep Throat, get it?"
Oh, he said it's like Watergate, Yeah. Deep Throat. Deep Wang.
Yeah. Deep.
I'm not a
Wang.
fan of this actor at all. Like, I'm
here's the
happy
thing.
he's got a career, even though he was successful as a doctor before. But
Now, here's the thing. I know him first from Community, and I love Community, and he fits
Okay.
into that
that's
well
fair.
enough.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah,
Right?
I have not watched that show, but I got high praise. I'm sure he's great in it.
Like, because in that, he teaches Spanish, right? He refers to himself as Senor Chang, and it works. Like, his shtick kind of works. But he's the sort of guy who he gets, typecast into these weird, like, quirky roles. And
Yeah, all the Apatow films or like the Hangover movies, like he's just impossible to listen to.
so you put him in Michael Bay's Transformers, and what do you get? You get this guy who he's introduced by just staring at Sam. He clearly knows who Sam is, and he's like watching him like a hawk, and he's uncomfortably close to other people as he's watching him. And he like grabs him in the elevator and says, "I know who you are." And then there's some awkward, like, I don't know, like gay jokes because he's in the bathroom stall and like John Malkovich hears noises and he walks out with his like trousers down, and it's
Yeah, it's hilarious.
yeah, like I wouldn't even say it crosses into homophobic territory or anything like that. It's just not funny. It's just
No.
yeah. So, but the reveal is that he was like he was working for Decepticons. Is that Soundwaves, who's more like an actual like Transformer in this one, where he's actually walking around. He's got like his pet bird Decepticon who goes around and like enlists humans to be their disciples, and Ken Jeong's character is one of those guys. So the big thing that gets Sam involved and like he's obsessed with Decepticons again is because this bird thing kills Ken Jeong at his workplace, and then he sees like a bunch of action there. So this is like, I need to do something. I need to solve the problem. He tries to go to the Autobots to help, and they don't let him in. And this is where Francis McDormand's like, "You're a civilian. You're not coming in here and like getting secrets and all that shit. You go home. You're not important. Leave."
What we've been saying for the first two films.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, see if he actually was capable and he was like solving problems in the first two, it'd be like, yeah, we would see value in him. We'd be like, no, he's got experience that almost no one else does.
Yeah.
And literally, the stupid thing is as well, all it would take would be Optimus to turn around and go, "No, we want him as our liaison. Give him a job," and they'd probably just do it. But,
yeah, probably. Like they could, set that ground rule.
yeah, but I mean, no one's thought of that apparently.
I also forgot completely that Decepticons can also impersonate humans in the last movie. So I imagine if you were Sam Witwicky, you would be afraid of all people that you didn't really know and all technology.
Yeah. Instead, he just doesn't really seem to worry about people all that much, other than just thinking they're weird. So anyway, his big plan to keep investigating is he needs the one man who he knows will help him get to the bottom of it. And who is that man? It's the man who was betrayed by his country, who was on a mission to save it.
Why is he in a wheelchair?
Well, he's not in a wheelchair at first. He gets injured in the car scene.
Okay. He's in a wheelchair because of that.
Yeah, he gets injured in the movie. Like, so he's walking around to begin with.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, why is he in a wheelchair now?
Yeah, we get introduced to him. He's been interviewed on TV, and his personal assistant is Alan Tudyk, who's playing a German character who
Dutch.
Sorry?
He's called Dutch.
Oh, he's called Dutch. You're right. Okay, sorry.
Or he is Dutch.
No, he's German.
Okay.
He said Dankeschön. I think that's only Germans that say that.
Maybe. I don't know. They refer to him as Dutch. I don't know if because he is or if because
Oh,
that's his nickname.
No. His character's name is Dutch. I confirmed it as soon as you said it. It's there. But yeah. No, Alan Tudyk, he's doing his overacting, but I know he's a funny guy. I've seen him be funny in many things. So he's doing this over the top character. They're all working together. Just before this goes anywhere meaningful, we get the John Malkovich scene where he comes over to give him some paperwork on Ken Jeong's character, and he just wants to come in and see a Transformer so he can shadow box with it. And then he lies on the floor and like giggles like he's a cat jumping on top of him or something like that. He's on the floor giggling, looking up at Bumblebee like, oh, Bumblebee, he's so funny. This is the last time you see him. He just leaves the movie after this.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah.
So what? What was the point of this scene? I don't know. But actually, and on John Turturro, on what is he? Simmons is his name. Sector 7 man. He like doesn't want to get involved for like 5 seconds because he treats it like it was an addiction that he got over, like on being into like conspiracies and the aliens and secrets. But then as soon as the phone's decrypted, he's just like, all right, I'm in. Like, that's it. It's just he's done.
Well, it turns out he has another motivation too, because he and Frances McDormand have history.
Well, yes. Well, when he sees her at the base, he says, and I quote, because she's walking in front of him. This is later on though, because he's in a wheelchair already at this point. But he says, that ass is unbelievable. Well,
at least he's flirting with someone who's more age appropriate.
And then she turns around and threatens him, says, if you ever tell anyone about that one night at Quantico, I'll kill it. I'll break your heart. And then he goes, you already did. Yeah, so Sam and Turturro like go invest. They end up going to like the Russian mob. This is like such a wild scene that but it's easy to forget because it's so early on, and it's like it's almost not that important afterwards because all it's just a path to get information, and then once they have the information, the plot can get going, and that's it. You forget about it. But there's a whole scene here where it reveals that Alan Tudyk's character is secretly like John Wick or something. Yeah, because
I was getting major John Wick vibes, or like Bourne or something, because he activates.
It's like, yeah. Actually, what's so funny is that he was in a show called Dollhouse, right? It was a show that only lasted 2 seasons, and his character in that, because that show was about it putting in different personalities into the same people, right? So the dolls would basically be like a blank slate that you could put in different characters, and his whole character, he was like the villain in that show, and his thing was that he kind of snapped, and he would kind of like switch between like 40 different personalities, but one of them was this like really evil, like vicious killer. And there's a moment in this when he like sort of like, he almost grins like evil, like he's about to like, I'm activating now. It reminded me a lot of his character in that show, just for a split second. And then he just like, does a couple of hits, pulls out some guns, and like has them at gunpoint, and then he apologizes. Oh, that was the old me. It's not me anymore. And all of this is just like it's just a lot of noise. It's a lot of things happening, all just to get to the point where someone says, "Here's some photos of when we were on the moon." Like
maybe it's just because Michael Bay is adapting a cartoon that he likes, that he feels like everybody needs to be a cartoon in this, but just the humans.
I think it's a very presumptuous of you to assume that he has ever seen a single episode of the Transformers cartoon.
Maybe you're right.
Keep in mind, when the cartoon was airing, he was already probably in his 20s.
Maybe, I don't know. I could see him. Yeah, I guess. Because he was 20s or late teens. Yeah,
because he was making, he made like music videos in the late 80s, so he had to have been.
Yeah. Well, Transformers was like really early 80s though, right? Okay,
well, I mean, he was on the verge of adulthood, surely.
Yeah, maybe he did see some, and it's just like, this is a really cool show, and I like cool things. I'll have to remember that for later.
I'm not convinced he cares about this brand. I think he gets paid a lot to make Transformers movies, and I think that's it.
You don't think the first one was a passion project?
No, not for him. He's just not a passion project guy. He is the corporate like just money director. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. Let's not pretend otherwise.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed for Steven Spielberg because he always puts his name on these films too.
Yeah.
Like the first thing that pops up after directed by is executive produced by Steven Spielberg.
So anyway, where are we on this this plot train? So yes, basically, the images reveal that they get from the Soviets that all these other rods to make this device work, which turns out to be a massive teleportation device. The Decepticons already have most of them because there was hundreds, and there was only a few found with Sentinel Prime. So basically, Sam, through deduction, works out that Megatron's plan was for the Autobots to get Sentinel Prime, that they need Sentinel Prime to turn it on or something. So the idea is like they're rushing to get back to the Autobots and base so that they can all protect Sentinel Prime from the Decepticons. Which actually gets us to our first big action set piece, which is on the road to there, because some Decepticons end up on the road with Sam and co. Bumblebee's there, and other Autobots there. There's like a red Autobot they've added called Duke? No. Something like that. It was like a short name like that. No?
I don't know that I caught any of the new names except for
there was
not Soundwave.
Shockwave.
Shockwave.
That's the Decepticon though. No, Sideswipe was back. Ironhide's obviously back. So is Ratchet. Although I noticed they made Ratchet green. Like he's the same looking, other than the fact that he's now green instead of yellow. But maybe that's because they finally realized maybe he shouldn't be the same color as Bumblebee.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So, yeah. Oh,
and there's some Autobots missing, which I was grateful for.
Oh yeah, the duo. Yes.
Yes.
I wonder if someone just told Bay, you're not having them back.
No more scrotums. No more peeing on John Turturro.
Yeah. Oh,
and no more problematic robots.
Dino was the new Autobot, the red one. Oh, I did not know this. Sideswipe was voiced by James Remar. Interesting. Okay.
There was definitely a voice that I recognized, but I couldn't place it. Maybe it was that.
Maybe. He's got a pretty distinct voice actually, but yeah. So they're on their way back, and we get this big scene where the Decepticons are attacking them in the car. This is where John Turturro gets hurt because he gets yanked out the back of his car and he lands on the road. So that's why he's in a wheelchair for the rest of the movie. The memorable thing of this scene is that at one point, to dodge something, Bumblebee has to like transform while Sam's inside him. So he kind of throws him into the air, and we get this slow motion shot of like Sam like flying through the air as Bumblebee transforms and then grabs him again and transforms back into car form. Which kind of
it was a cool shot.
It does kind of lead to one of my problems though, is that because everything's moving so fast, despite the fact that the movie's so long, it still has to like rush certain things. And one of the moments it rushes is like Sam's like reaction to just going through that, because you get like 2 seconds of him just looking like in the car, and then immediately the next shot it cuts to him and he's like, come on, we gotta go, and I'm like, oh, he got over that quick.
I did appreciate that he was screaming like he was about to die still, at least when he was in the car again. Yeah. And I'm not saying it needs to go that long, but it lasts like 2 seconds and cuts, and then it seems like he's normal in the very next shot. Absolutely.
I'm just saying an extra few seconds of him just sort of like breathing
like
heavily.
Yeah, thinking he was about to eat asphalt.
Yeah. just a little something. That's all we're asking. It was interesting is that for the first time in 3 movies, despite the fact that he's been there, and there's a reason why for this, obviously we're about to get to, but Ironhide actually gets a cool scene where he gets to like be a badass for a second. There's a scene where him sideswiping 2 Decepticons get into effectively a Mexican standoff where they're all pointing guns at each other.
Yeah.
And they all put their guns down, but then the Decepticons are sneaky. They're sneaky villains, and they pull out some extra weapons from their back. And Sideswipe has to kick a gun up to Ironhide, and Ironhide, executes them basically. So, but of course, the reason why they give him this moment is so that you might care a little bit in like 30 seconds when he dies. Because out of nowhere, the big twist of this movie is that Sentinel Prime was switching sides. He was going to make a deal with Megatron. He's actually a villain, and he shoots Ironhide in the back, killing him, and then steals all the rods to go and finish the plan with Megatron. Leonard Nimoy's character is a
betrayal,
an Autobot that went bad. Yep.
Well, we had the Decepticon that went good in the last film, so
that's true.
We had a subversion of that.
And the little one that switched sides in the last one's still here. He's still a comedy character that's occasionally around.
But I think he's voiced by a different actor.
It might be. Although
he sounds different.
It sounded kind of like him when it was him talking. I think the other one talked a lot more, so maybe you're thinking of that. But you could be right. Maybe it is a different voice as well. But that's just where the plot actually kind of starts, though. Like, okay, things are actually happening.
Yeah, but it's just fighting. There's just so much fighting.
No, I don't disagree, but the first hour before this is nothing but freaking padding.
Yeah.
Like, at least the actual reason we're here for the movie starts happening at this point. You know, there's actually a threat, and there's like because this is the thing. Before this point, like, other than the Decepticon that's going around killing people that were working with them, like, Megatron's just sitting in the desert, just going, yes, everything's going to plan. Like, we don't really know what's going on yet. So there's no, like, clear villain for a while. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yes, they bring in more Decepticons. He sets up the rods and just a little teleporter for now to bring in some reinforcements. Megatron, like, destroys the Lincoln statue and sits in it instead. Symbolism, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you love symbolism? So good.
Just like the end of that Planet of the Apes movie.
Not the good one.
That's what I always think of when I see that statue. It's just Tim Ross, chimp head.
There's a whole scene here where Optimus like gets to him and like fights him a little bit and is like, "How could you do this, Sentinel?" and all that stuff. And Sentinel's like, "You're lucky I don't kill you, but this is what needs to happen to save Cybertron and save the world."
They have to work with the Decepticons in order to save, because he doesn't care about humans. He just cares about, I guess, like originally he was built to just try to find resources on other planets, which is what the Decepticons did, right? Like they would go to different planets to find resources, but they wouldn't care if it was already occupied by other species. And the Autobots were like, no, that's a rule we don't break. It's a line we don't cross.
Yeah, well, that was the Primes at the start of the last one, right? It was that the Primes go to different planets and use their machine to eat the sun, but if there's living people or whatever on the planets, they wouldn't do it.
Well, that's what this, like, teleportation thing is also designed for, is to transport resources, but instead he's using it to bring the planet to us.
Yeah, Cybertron's coming to Earth. It was making me think of Moonfall for like 30 seconds when
me too.
The planet was coming toward. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, I hate it when movies make you think of better movies.
Debatable. That's debatable, that right there.
Moonfall is a good movie.
Oh no. So yeah, so that's the big thing here, and the Decepticons and Sentinel Prime are going to turn on everything, and they basically say, look, we're going to kill everyone. We're going to take some resources, then leave, but we won't hurt anyone. But only if you send away the Autobots. So our big thing in the middle plot-wise is that the ship that apparently brought the second wave of Autobots, which they never answered in the second movie, and I guess it's because we didn't really feel like we needed an answer, but they give us like a reason here. It's like, oh yeah, there was a ship that came down with the second batch of Autobots.
Okay.
For reasons. So they're going to be launched away, and obviously they're not really going to be launched away, because otherwise where would the movie go? But
Sam keeps asking Optimus, like, but there's a plan, right? No.
Well, I was going to get to that, because like, there's a reason why he keeps asking that, which is separate plot. But the Autobots, it looks like they get shot out the sky and they're all dead, but obviously they're not. So that's kind of like what the Transformer side of things. The human side of things during this part of the movie is that it turns out Patrick Dempsey is working with the Decepticons.
What?
His father worked at NASA and was working with Decepticons since the 60s, apparently, or some shit.
Wow.
And he kidnaps... So, actually, we never even mentioned this, but earlier in the movie, he gave Carly a car, like a $200,000 car, which obviously makes Sam get all jealous and weird. Is like, just giving my girlfriend a $200,000 car like that. And
a work car. I have one of those.
Did it cost $200,000?
No, it's a Tesla though.
Yeah, but like all the equal employees all got the same car, right?
Yes.
There you go. See, no favoritism.
No, but I am the favorite. It's a woman-owned
Sure.
company. I don't care.
Oh, fair enough. All right.
I have to be the favorite. I'm the coolest. I do a podcast.
I'm just imagining how uncool the rest of the workers at your job must be
Yeah, they're pretty uncool.
for that statement to hold true.
They don't even know who Red Brown is.
Shocking statement.
Happy birthday, Red Brown.
Oh, that's right.
It's his birthday.
We're recording this on the day of Red Brown's birthday, so Cheese McHardnut, happy birthday.
Think McRun fast.
Oh dear. So basically they kidnap her because her car turns out to be a Decepticon and like traps her, and then Sam is giving this like Transformer watch that is a little Decepticon that'll record anything he does or says, because they want to basically use him as a mole to try and find out what's going to happen with the Autobots.
And they want Shia LaBeouf to do the acting thing again, where his brain's being taken over, but he's still trying to act normal.
Yeah, he's like throwing himself over tables, he's touching like extras on the head and all sorts of weird things. And do you know what's so annoying about this is they set up this massive plot point where they're going to force Sam to be a mole for them, and it amounts to nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Because all that happens is that once Optimus says, no, there's no plan, we're just leaving because that's what they want, that's what the humans want us to do, so we're going to accept it and leave, the watch just goes away, and there's never like a big reveal. Like Sam never even has to tell them later on, oh, by the way, I was like being used like against my will to like spy on you earlier. Like it never comes up because nothing meaningful happens because of it.
Nope. That's his movie for you.
Like
I swear, I think it's just because they wanted to have Shia LaBeouf do his acting thing.
It's maddening to me that you set up this entire plot idea, which is supposed to exist. In most movies, you would do something like this because you want drama later on when the other good guys think that he's bad because he's doing some shady shit, but then ultimately realize, oh no, he was forced into it against his will. Like, there's supposed to be beats of drama that go along with all these things.
Mean, the only thing that kind of reflects that is that Dr. McDreamy is also under the influence of, like, because he's like, it's not my fault. I was born into this. My father did it. And now I have to do it. Like, they're telling us that we're working with the Decepticons because we have no other choice, which is kind of a lie because, you know, he's living pretty lavishly.
He's full of shit, yeah. He's just saying that.
But, that's the only thing that kind of, you know, falls in line with what Sam has to go through here because they have his girlfriend hostage.
But I can't believe how little this means to the rest of the movie. Nothing, literally nothing happens as a result of him being forced to do this. It has no effect on anything. It is just wasted time.
Yep. Now there's a damsel in distress, I guess.
Yeah, the only important thing here is that his girlfriend's kidnapped, because obviously that's going to be a motivator
Which
later on.
they could have done without the whole watch thing.
But do you know what it is? It's just to explain why they let him go. Because why would they let him go otherwise? Why wouldn't they just kill him? Or keep him captive as well?
Yeah, I don't know.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So it feels like it feels like it was written just to justify why they let him go back to everyone else.
Yep. It's
all right.
Stupid.
that's the only reason I can kind of offer you.
I mean, I wish I could say more, but it's stupid. It's a stupid movie.
So I actually thought, because we see Josh Duhamel's character just sort of around the base talking to Optimus and Francis McDormand before this, and I thought, oh, maybe Tyrese Gibson's not here again. Maybe he left before this one, but he shows up at just before the Autobots leave the planet. He's been working at this like shuttle launch place because he retired from the Air Force or whatever. And it's like, okay, and this is a thing. Because after this, Sam's like, I'm going to go to Chicago. Because Chicago turns into a war zone. It turns into no man's land. It turns into Decepticons have taken Chicago. They're killing people in the streets. They're using that as their base to like do their massive teleporter thing to bring in, you know, the blue beam of light that will bring down Cybertron, all that shit. And Sam's like, I want to go into Chicago and save my girlfriend. And Epps, Tyrese Gibson's character's like, yeah, they just killed the Autobots, and they were my friends too, so I'm coming with. And he basically just forms a team of like people he knew in the military, all of them who are just red shirts that we've never seen before, obviously. And it's like, this is our team, get into the city to try and like save her. And up until this point, like, other than just being like mad at Sam for being obsessed with wanting to be important, and when she's like, just be my boyfriend, like, how much of a character would you say Carly actually has?
Uh, um, Nothing. No, I can't. No, nope. Nothing comes to mind.
I don't know, two ass cheeks, I guess. If that's an answer.
I mean, we got the butts. We got the cleavage in a really tight dress. When someone's talking about a woman car, and legs.
A lot of legs, yep. Like, the entire motivator is for his character to get out of this last act is to go and get her, and it's so hopeless. And obviously they're about to die from this, like, so basically there's a bunch of ships flying around at Decepticons. I actually thought they were just Transformers themselves, but it turns out there's actually Transformers piloting these ships, and one's about to kill them all just as they're entering the city, and that's when it gets shot by a big cannon or something. Then the big entrance of Optimus, and it's like, we just wanted them to think we were leaving so that they would let our guard down, and of course we're going to stay and fight.
I didn't think of it at the time, but it is kind of wild that they would have machines that they would drive.
Yep, I don't know what.
Since they could become transport vehicles.
They could literally just do it. I mean, I guess it's just because they can have bigger cannons, I guess. It's the weaponry more than anything.
Or is it a transformer that they can fit another transformer into?
No,
I used to have the micro machines that you would open it up and then a smaller micro machine would come out.
I don't know. That feels weirdly sexual to me. I don't think that's not okay.
Well, that's not how they procreate. They use all sparks.
They use all sparks. Yes, Energon just turns things into living sentient robots. What's funny actually is that the big ship that's flying around that these little ships like dock into looks a lot like the big alien in Avengers, the one that flies around the city. Very similar in design, actually.
That was 2009 or 10?
12. That was after this.
It was after this. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Only 1 year, so that would have already been shot by the time this came out. But
that is a problem that we've kind of had with a lot of sci-fi movies in the last decade or two. Is that a lot of concept designs kind of blur together. There's not a lot of original stuff that we praise anymore, like original looking aliens or monsters or ship designs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I will say, get into this, because this is from the till the end is just like your extended war action stuff, right? I will praise a couple things here, especially in comparison to the last one. There's a couple of cool individual moments that we'll point out, and maybe those are relatively subjective. But I will say, in a broad sense, that at least I feel like there's more individual set pieces in this, like versus, because I feel like the last one, it was just running in the desert, dodging explosions for like the whole time. Whereas this, I can think of like individual, like a good 5 or 6 different like set piece moments that were all different.
Yes. Yeah, we're not bouncing around too many places, which is good. And once we're in Chicago, we just stay there.
Yeah.
But when we first get there too, and we're getting like the war footage that's happening in Chicago, it's done kind of neat where it's almost like a montage, but it's like a music video montage where things fade in and out of black, almost like you're watching a trailer for the movie that you're watching in the middle of the movie. But I thought at least it was a neat, directing point, which is not a thing that I usually say with Michael Bay.
Yeah, so like obviously there's a little bit of sneaking around to begin with, and shock waves around, so he ends up like separating Optimus from his trailer, but Optimus like eventually fights him. I think obviously the first big goal is that, okay, so Sentinel Prime's got these 4 rods. He's got hundreds of rods around the city, but he's got 4 in the building that he's on that are like the control rods. And it's like, if we take out one of those, it'll stop the thing. So Sam with his group are like, hey, can we shoot down one of those rods? We've got one rocket launcher that we've got from like some old military tech or whatever. Let's go and do that. So that's the goal. And that's all fine. Okay, let's go up to this floor in this tall building so we've got a line of sight, and let's shoot the thing. They've got a clear goal, which I respect. It's easy to understand, and they're climbing up. Don't get me wrong, I still wish it wasn't like so quickly cut and stuff. There's still things to critique as far as like how it's directed, but at least I understand the goal, I understand the purpose. I wish I was watching Transformers instead, but at least from a principles perspective, it's set up a goal and they're trying to achieve it. So
I understand exactly what the humans' role is in this, unlike the last two.
Yes.
Like the last two big end set piece fights.
So, and the third act does feel bigger because like the Decepticons have taken a whole city siege effectively, which is bigger than the last two. Like you can't deny that that's a bigger stakes kind of thing.
Yeah. And Chicago, which is, not one that we've seen before, which is neat.
Yeah.
Chicago's a huge city that doesn't always get shown in movies. It's always New York or maybe even LA, but it's usually New York.
I mean, I always recognize the bridges over the water, which you do see in this movie as well. Ever since Batman Begins, I always recognize those bridges.
Oh, yeah. I lived outside of Chicago for a little bit. Yeah, it is, when you walk around, you're like, ooh, I'm in Gotham.
Yeah, so they do that, but the big thing that happens is that Soundwave starts like basically circling around the middle of this building, and it's making it like sort of break in half, and it's like tipping over. And it's a relatively fun set piece where they start to slide, they're trying to hide, and they've got their backs to the pillars inside. But then when the Decepticon sees them, they all start falling and whatnot.
You know what it reminded me of? This came later also, but it reminded me of the end of the last, or the first Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 4, which sort of took place on the side of a skyscraper that was falling.
Actually, the thing it reminded me of, which did become before 2009, was there's a set piece like this in Uncharted 2, where you're in like a building that's tipping over, and you're actually fighting, and like as it's starting to go slanty. It's a video game premise then that we're reminded of. But there's like a whole big thing, which is it's very over the top, and that everything feels over the top in this, where they end up like sliding down the glass on the outside of the building. And it's like, this is absurd, like how high up you are. Yeah. But they shoot the glass, they fall into like another floor, so they don't fall to their deaths. And it's a simple fun. This stuck out to me as being like a proper set piece for the humans, more than anything in the last movie, because it was actually okay. I understand the simple. Obviously, I'm not saying it's realistic and how it handles all this stuff, but at least I understand the broad physics of what it's doing.
Yeah.
But Optimus was
somebody would have been hit by an I-beam like way long before.
I don't think that's the only problem. I think there's more down to earth like problems with it, but
oh sure.
Yeah, like so Optimus flies in with his jetpack and like takes on Shockwave and has a good fight with him. Good being a relative word here. I just mean good as in that it's lengthy and there's a lot to it rather than just quick boom. But he actually ends up tangled up, so he's like out of the fight for a while, just like tangled up. But this is one of the points where I said the humans are in trouble until the end of the scene, where either Optimus or Bumblebee will show up and save them. Like this was one of the first examples. Well, not the first, but it's the first example where I started notice it was a trend in this movie. Mm-hmm. But he gets tangled up in a bunch of bridge cables or something, so he's like out of the action for like a good half an hour whilst all this other shit's going on.
Yeah.
But because there's a scene where Starscream starts attacking the humans when they're on their own, and that's an interesting little sequence because it's like they have to fight a Decepticon without any Autobots for help.
Yep, I noticed because I was like, "Where are all the Autobots?" when I'm building my dresser, which looks great, by the way.
Sure.
It was a long enough movie that I was able to finish it.
I mean, like, it's all fine. I mean, they definitely want to give Sam more to do, so he's like jumping on Starscream's head and he's dangling from his eye. I do think it's interesting that other Autobot gave him like a weird grappling hook thing that would fit perfectly on a human hand. Like, I'm like, okay, it just feels out of nowhere that you built this thing for a human, but okay.
Well, I mean, they were working with the American military, so maybe they were trying to.
True. It feels like we've never seen them like give anything designed for a human before, so it's just that it stuck out. It's just an out of nowhere plot point, but eventually they blow up Starscream's head, so he does die. Although Bumblebee does show up right at the end to catch Sam from falling to his death, because when Starscream like dies, he dies like up at the edge of a roof, so Sam falls. And so there's a slow motion moment of Bumblebee jumping out to grab him. So again, humans are on their own. They're in a lot of danger, and just at the end, just to save them at the last second, in swoops an Autobot. It's a very formulaic thing that happens in this movie, in the last chunk. Next big set piece is probably where all the Autobots except Optimus, who's still tangled up in some cables, are all like held captive. Like the Decepticons have basically won the fight, so all the Autobots are like on their knees with their hands behind their heads. And then
it looks like we're gonna lose Bumblebee.
Well, they execute the older English one first, and I say old just because he's meant to look and sound like an old man. Obviously, he's just still an Autobot. But
I thought it was the Scottish one at first, and I was like, no, not the Peter one. And then it turns out I just don't know accents all that well.
No, it was not the Scottish one. Yeah,
not the Peter bot.
Yeah, Bumblebee's all ready to die. He's got the gun to the back of his head. But this is the two little robots have like found their way onto the big ship, and they start pulling out cables. So all these like parts of the ship start falling onto the Decepticons, and that gives the Autobots a chance to fight back. And big fight breaks out, and then eventually at the end of this, Optimus comes swooping in and has his big slow motion like shot where he takes out all the Decepticons on his own because he's the badass.
He's a prime.
He's the hero. He's the super one. He's all that stuff. And somewhere around all this, with the teleporters like really gearing up to like start bringing in Cybertron, Leonard Nimoy says a familiar line.
Yes, he does.
Go on, describe your thoughts and feelings. I'm describing a lot of
the needs of the
stupid...
many outweigh the needs of the few.
Well, that's the line. That's not describing your feelings, but I've been describing a lot of shit plot points here, Tara. Come on, give me something.
Well, he says it as a way to justify why he's gone over to the Decepticons, or at least working with them. But yeah, I just like it because it's so blatant, like what they're doing. It's like we got Leonard Nimoy, and just in case you forget, like every 20 minutes we'll do a Star Trek reference, including like his most famous line, other than "Live long and prosper."
Yeah, but how could even they knew they couldn't fit that in without it sounding really out of place.
Unless he like goes back to being good or something at the end, and then they do a thing. But like even still, yeah. I mean, I'm just embarrassed for. I'm glad you don't see Leonard Nimoy, you just hear him, and he's doing like kind of an awesome voice actually for the character, but it's just reference for the sake of reference. It's stupid.
I think
we understand like why he made the decision to go, like if he's more concerned about saving Cybertron than Earth, then yeah, okay, it makes sense. You know, you don't need to add the needs of the many.
I mean, he's General Zod basically from Superman. That's effectively what he is.
Yeah.
So here's my thing, actually, and this is a genuine problem, I think, for the movie, is I think both Megatron and Sentinel Prime feel like they don't really get enough to do. Like literally the entire last act until they get into a fight with Optimus, Sentinel's just on top of this building, occasionally saying something. I feel like Shockwave is the one that's actually presented as the big threat and feels like a big threat, and it feels like a big deal when he's taken out. The other two who are supposed to be the main bad guys, and specifically Sentinel, because at least Megatron obviously is back from the previous two, and we don't need to establish him in the same way.
You really didn't need to have Megatron in the film, though.
You didn't really. It does lead to a scene, though, that I thought was laughably quite funny, which is that Carly just decides to have a chat with Megatron to convince him to like go against Sentinel Prime. She goes over and is like, "Hey, isn't it a shame that you're going to work for him? You're going to be Sentinel Prime's bitch."
See,
and
she's
like,
not just TNA.
But it's so stupid though, because like he's about to grab her and then he stops when she says that, and all I could think was, okay, you can still like be convinced by what she said, but then still just squat her like a fly before you get up. Like why would you stop? Why would that stop you from killing her?
Thank you, puny human.
Yeah, just flick her away. Like why not? Maybe
She's made of meat, like just and you're made of metal.
Maybe this would have been more. I mean, I wouldn't say it'd be believable, but maybe it would have been more believable if this was still Megan Fox, because at least she's been around these things like multiple times now that we could maybe buy she has the balls to do this.
Exactly. Yeah, like she would and she's been around Megatron before, so
Yeah.
it would make sense that she would be able to go face to face with him.
Whereas this woman in this movie has been nothing but a hostage, and has not been useful at all. But
or having John Malkovich check her out when she bends over.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that scene where she goes to visit Sam at work and John Malkovich just pervs on her. He's like, "Oh, who is this? A cousin? A sister?"
He's just like, John Turturro on her.
Yeah, really weird scene. Other set pieces here is obviously the is Josh Duhamel and his team coming down the wingsuits, so we can get a bit of military like propaganda.
I guess I don't know that this is the thing military does. This is more of like a hobbyist thing, doing the wingsuits.
I felt like it's funny because I feel like it wasn't as heavy in the first half of the movie, but in the back half, it did sort of feel like it was bringing in the military stuff a bit more, where it was like, see, look, our troops are so good that they took down a Decepticon, without the Autobots, which I kind of respect in a way, because I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that maybe like a way you build tension is can the humans take down one on their own without the Autobots? That actually sounds like a cool scene, but it would be nice if it wasn't just because Sam got a magic weapon from the Autobots. It'd be cool if it was actually outsmarting Starscream by, I don't know, like, I'm thinking
working as a team, like working as a unit.
I'm
like a military
thinking,
unit.
Well, no, because we don't know the military though. They're a bunch of no names. Like, I'm thinking it has to be a character we care about that's the head of doing it, right? But unlike in this movie where Sam just has a magic couple of weapons that he got from an Autobot, because he literally gets like a Cybertron like bomb and like a grappling thing from an Autobot, and it's like, okay, fine, but like there's nothing satisfying about this because you've just introduced these things so we can use them in the next couple of scenes. Like, imagine it was more like obviously it's bigger in scale, but think like Terminator, right? Where these things are unkillable. But if we lure the T-1000 into the right place, we can do something that'll kill him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they set up the back of the neck's like a weak point, if you get a nice shotgun blast in there, it'll actually do some serious damage because it exposes some weak points. Maybe you have like him waiting at the right spot behind, because they set up, we were training them to do this earlier, so you have maybe Josh Duhamel on top of a building, so when Starscream turns around, boom, he gets the weak spot. They've done it. They've used the things that they've set up to take him down.
Yes.
It'd be more satisfying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was a little bit of like, there was a moment at least where I was like, oh, I'm glad like the humans are actually doing something in this. And during this fight where they feel kind of useful, where they're like dropping bombs and like the foot of like grenades in the feet of the Decepticons, which is kind of cool because the Transformers are kind of like kaiju. They're so massive and humans are basically bugs to them. They're like, maybe not ants, they're massive and they're made of metal. Like you can't go one-on-one with a machine like that. So the only like thing you can really do is hope that they're distracted by fighting each other, that you can do like little tricks and stuff to trip them or to actually be like, oh no, we are still a threat to them, by going after the feet, like in that one scene. So I like that there was something there at least.
I guess like I almost wanted it to feel like a horror movie almost. Like if a couple of humans have to take on a Decepticon on their own, it should feel more like a horror movie. Like you say, taking down a monster, as opposed to like an action scene between two equally equipped, beings effectively. So
no, I think they should use traps and little like tricks and like going after the ankles.
I guess more tactics would be cool. But I guess it's also conflicting though, because I think, like you say, we're kind of thinking at this point, like, where the hell are the Autobots? Like, I want to see the Autobots. so you're kind of conflicted because you're like, okay, it makes sense to do some drama by having humans face a Decepticon on their own, but you're also doing it at a time when I feel deprived of the Autobots as a viewer as well. So I'm getting these mixed, like, I don't know how to feel now. They're both kind of clashing each other.
Although I did just think of a kind of a neat Transformer film. If you have like a Decepticon, like if you're like trapped in a house and it turns out your television is a Decepticon and you have to like try to defeat it with only your household items and stuff like that. Like, that's a cool horror movie. I'd watch that.
Yeah, but that's probably more of a human-sized Decepticon, because if it's just transforming into a TV.
Yeah, yeah. Or I mean, you could be like trapped somewhere. And but yeah, I don't know. A large robot would be harder. This would be more of like a hardware movie or like, uh,
Demon Seed.
Demon Seed. That's a great movie. Hardware is pretty good. Or even just Terminator, like the first Terminator.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So eventually, yeah. Obviously, the pillar comes down with the thing in it. Patrick Dempsey goes to turn it back on and fight Sam. There's some obvious stunt double for Sam at one point. Actually, you can kind of see it's not Shia LaBeouf, but they're fighting each other, and he eventually kicks Dempsey into the pillar thing, and he gets like electrocuted from that. And I'm like, did Sam just kill a dude? It seems like he may have done. But yeah, like, so there's all this going on, but ultimately it's Bumblebee who like destroys that, and then it just becomes Sentinel Prime is fighting Optimus, and because Carly has had this little chat with Megatron, like, hey, you're going to be his bitch, you might want to deal with that. And to be fair, there was a scene earlier on where Sentinel Prime like grabs Megatron by the head and he's like, I will never work for you, you'll be under me, you know. So it did at least establish that that's what the hierarchy is going to be. Megatron comes in and shoots Sentinel Prime in the back a couple times, right after he rips off Optimus Prime's arm. Actually, Optimus Prime loses his arm, and he's a robot, so I'm sure it'll just be reattached next time. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. But
does he get a sword in the next one? I remember that on the poster.
No, I think that's the one I've not seen. That's because the fifth one is the King Arthur looking one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the last night. But this is where you get the badass line, right? Because they've done this thing in the last movie as well. In this one, it's one of the few interesting things in the last one is that they turned Optimus Prime into this sort of stone cold killer when the time comes for it. Where Megatron, after he's not quite killed Sentinel yet, because Optimus still does that afterwards, but he's put down Sentinel. And he's like, Optimus, let's come to an agreement. You need me. What would you be without me? And Optimus is just like, time to find out, and then just like gets up and just rips out his head and spleen. It's actually kind of glorious as a moment.
Fatality.
It is. And then Sentinel's like begging Optimus, and Optimus is like, not today, and just like point blanks him in the face with his big cannon. And honestly, what's funny is I remember thinking this at the time. I'd forgotten about it, but it clicked when it happened here, is how quickly this movie goes to credits when this battle's over.
I was grateful.
I mean, I was grateful, but it is unnaturally quick. Like, Sam hugs Carly, Optimus says one line, and then credits. There's a mid-credit scene, sure, but like, yeah, where Turturro sexually assaults Frances McDormand and then says, it was worth it, arrest me, take me in. Which is, you know...
Does that come back into play in the next movie? Is she back and she's with Turturro?
I don't think either of them are back. I mean, at least I don't remember them being back.
So the next one is the Mark Wahlberg one?
Yeah, next one's Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
I don't think any of the humans are back. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't remember them, though.
I mean, honestly, I could use a reset from all these characters.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, there's some things we didn't mention, like, you know, Alan Tudyk turns out to be like an expert hacker as well, because he's like hacking into like the...
Who does he think he is, Neil Breen?
He's hacking into like the bridge systems and like lowering bridges in the city for the humans to get across and things like that. Just there's little things like that. It's so wild though, because I was sort of going like, you've given him this different skill set, so he's got something to do. John Turturro has nothing to do for this last act. Frances McDormand has nothing to do for this last act.
Well, they can't make John Turturro competent in anything.
No. Malkovich is just gone. They don't even have him around talking anymore. The parents are gone. Like, there's so many characters in the first half of this movie that are just not useful or not even there in the second half, which just makes you go, why did you even bother spending all the time with these characters in the first place? We didn't need them.
For the laughs.
Like, you think back to like Ken Jeong like taking his trousers off and like yelling at Shia LaBeouf in like a bathroom like an hour and a half ago, and you think, I feel like I've been through a war since then. Like, all this feels eons ago. Remember when the mom was talking about Shia's big dick? That was like a decade ago at this point.
Oh god.
Sorry, what were you saying? I was rambling still about at the time.
I was wondering if the Ken Jeong scenes were improvised. They feel kind of improvised, like they really try hard to be funny. A lot of bad improv like goes into like, oh, it's funny because it's gay, or it's funny because it's inappropriate, or stuff like that.
He also has that stupid one, actually, when the Decepticon threatens him, he pulls out 2 handguns that he's got under his desk at his like tech job, and he sort of points them both at the camera like he's like some stupid badass. I don't know, like that felt like a really juvenile Michael Bay moment. Like I was cringing at that.
This movie's embarrassing, yeah.
Yeah, it's not as embarrassing as the last one, and I suppose
it's not. It's definitely a step up.
A
step.
I guess the one thing I'll say as well is that the embarrassing humor mostly goes away once it turns into a war movie.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agree. There's no scrotum.
No. No. That's true. But obviously the second half has a lot of its own problems, don't get me wrong. It's not like it turns into a good movie. But that said though, despite everything we've said about it, it's still clearly better than the last one. It's not even a question.
No, I agree.
There's arguably
the last one is really hard to watch. And
there's arguably things about it that are better than the first one. Probably not as a whole, but there's maybe individual things. Like there's probably some better fight scenes than there were in the first one, I would say.
No, I think he definitely took notes, you know. At least heard some of the feedback or was given feedback from producers or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you really need to clean this up.
It's not as good as it should be or as fun as it could be, but it is better.
Yes.
And that's a very contextual word. Better.
Yes. The camera is at least still in a lot of points, which I appreciate so much. Because I couldn't handle another sweaty, spinny mess. That's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, I suppose the one thing is, if this was still Michaela, imagine her being kidnapped and being the damsel for like half the movie. That'd feel kind of weird.
Yeah, that would be disappointing. Maybe they wouldn't have done that.
Maybe.
Or at least not the same. Because she would be skeptical. If she got a $200,000 car, she'd be like, I wonder if this car is like a transformer.
Honestly, Sam actually has a good line where he says, let's sell it and buy a house. That's actually a good bit of advice.
Totally.
Like if you got a
Although the place they live in looks amazing.
Yeah, she is earning a lot of money at this job. Like, because I live in Washington, D.C. as well, which I can't imagine is a cheap place to have an apartment like that.
Oh,
I mean,
it is not. I have a friend who does own a brownstone up there, and I can't imagine what they paid for it.
Like, I'm sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. A loft apartment that looks like this, I'm sure, is expensive anywhere. But I have to imagine that in a city like Washington D.C., it's probably, you know, it's got the Washington tax on it as well. Yeah. So, yeah. But you know, that's what Michael Bay is, though. He's a director who wants every location to look lavish, everything to look as cool as possible, every babe to be as hot as she can be, and every male character to be as quirky and as perverted as possible. That is his MO, and it's still true in this movie. So.
Yep. It's annoying. Embarrassing.
This is true. And also, just a shout out, Buzz Aldrin get a cameo where he shows up to talk to Optimus Prime about what we saw on the moon. Again,
just so embarrassing. And he is kind of a, you know, he had some social media problems before the end.
Did he? Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. Actually, it's always so funny about this scene though, is that he comes in, he's like, oh, from as one space traveler to another, it's an honor. And then Optimus goes, no, the honor is all mine. And I get why they're doing that in a meta sense, because they want to say that to Buzz Aldrin, but it felt really... Optimus Prime was just pissed off that the humans knew something about like the Transformers that they lied about. Yes. It felt so out of character
Buzz
in the moment for him to say
Aldrin was there for it.
And he's like, the honor is mine. Why is that an honor for you, Optimus? Why? I don't understand why it's an honor for you. You're mad at these people right now.
Yes, and Earth's history means nothing to you. Except for the parts where the Transformers are involved.
I mean, no, like, I would get it. Like, see if you removed him being pissed about all this, right? I could see, okay, they've been learning about Earth's history, and because, you know, they're space travelers themselves, maybe they would respect NASA. They'd respect the moon landing.
It's an honor to meet the second man on the moon. Really rub it in there because he's really upset.
You're the second best astronaut that NASA has to offer. And then Buzz is just like, that prick Neil.
First to land, first to die. Buzz did outlive him.
Yeah, I'm sure he's thrilled about that. Taking it.
Yeah.
That's what's on his gravestone. It's just Neil landed first, but he also died first. So I had the last laugh.
Yeah. Who knows what's going on with Michael Collins? Who's technically the third guy there, but like,
yeah,
I don't know what his deal is, or he's probably not alive anymore.
Probably not. But it's kind of a shame that the person who's in the thing
Someone had to drive. Yeah.
doesn't get the recognition, even though he is arguably more important to the whole thing. But just because he didn't put his foot on the moon, he's not allowed to take any of the fame or credit that the other two get. I didn't even know his name. I'm impressed you did, because I didn't.
I'm pretty sure that's his name. I was really into that stuff when I was a kid.
No, sure, yeah. All right. I guess we're done. I don't know. What else is there to say at this point? It wasn't as painful as the last one, although I will say
it was
this.
Very long though.
The runtime of these movies, and I think it's worse because we just watched the other two relatively recently. Like, it felt long, and I know the next one is even longer, and I am worried about how it's going to feel in 2 weeks when we're doing that. But we'll do it.
Yeah. We're gonna have to take notes. You're gonna have to take notes.
I was thinking that, actually. I was thinking maybe I should take notes for this, because just to keep track of like all the scenes and just make sure I don't miss anything I want to talk about. I think I hit.
Yeah, I think we got everything. At least all the stuff that was relevant.
Yeah, all the stuff that I wanted to talk about anyway. I actually, this is one little tiny thing, but see the scene where Patrick Dempsey is with like his hostage Carly, and he goes up to tell Megatron something, who's with Sentinel, and Megatron's like, you've fulfilled your use, like human slave peasant, go away, all right? And Patrick Dempsey goes, yes, my lord, right? He sort of bows and he walks away, and they wanted to add in this little line where Patrick Dempsey goes, man, he's such a dick, but they sort of do it off camera, and it's clearly something that they've just added in because they thought it would be funny, but it's like squeezed in so quickly before it cuts to the next scene that it doesn't register. It's such a shitty little like squeezed in line.
I don't even think I noticed it.
It's so bad, and it's just them trying to squeeze in one extra thing that just doesn't need to be there and just doesn't register because it's so rushed.
What, are we supposed to have sympathy for Patrick Dempsey in this?
I know.
What was the point?
But besides, when I see Patrick Dempsey, I just think of Scream 3, and I don't want to be reminded of Scream 3. Okay, I hate Scream 3.
I've not seen it. I've also not seen I think it's Grey's Anatomy where he plays Dr. McDreamy. I just know him as Dr. McDreamy.
That's his big thing, but I've never seen that, so I know him from Scream 3, of all things. You should watch the first Scream, though. I do recommend the first Scream.
Well, I'm gonna. I think that'll be my like October thing, is finally checking out all the Scream films.
I mean, you've got 6 of them to watch now, and I'd say for the most part they're fun enough.
I'd like to get through it this year. I'll get through.
Yeah. First one's good. Some of the sequels are fun, but obviously have some silly sequely things in them. 3 is just the one that I don't like because it's just convoluted nonsense. Anyway, this has been Transformers: Dark of the Moon. I had to watch. I think I heard a good point actually when this came out. Someone pointed out that John Turturro, John Malkovich, and Francis McDormand are all like Coen Brothers actors. This is like a Coen Brothers cast in this.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah. And
I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. That's a good point. Plus Wash from Firefly. Like, you have to watch all these great actors like be.
Do you like his character in this? Do you like seeing him in this?
I mean, there's like a moment of like 5 seconds when I first saw him. It's Alan Tudyk. I like Alan Tudyk. And then, of course, like it goes away
I'm so embarrassed.
As he talks.
Embarrassed for you.
Yeah.
What are you doing in this?
So, yeah, you've seen a lot of people that you like in other things be just dehumanized.
I mean, the biggest one is, of course, Leonard Nimoy, the legend.
Yep.
At least you don't have to see him. You just hear his awesome voice.
Yeah,
and his voice work is good.
Is it almost worse though that he says a line that he's famous for doing as Spock? Because at least these other actors don't reference their work.
It's true. I'm glad he doesn't have any kind of comedic line. Because if he would have a joke line, then I would be really cringed and no, don't do this to my boy.
I mean, he doesn't say any joke line, but you have to admit, the episode of Star Trek they're watching at the start, I'm assuming it's Spock's brain because the little Autobot says, I've seen this one, it's the one where Spock goes crazy. That's actually, I think that's supposed to be a funny bit of foreshadowing. Because Spock goes crazy.
Spock doesn't go crazy in Spock's brain. He doesn't have a brain. He's just kind of a vegetable. He just walks around with like a thing on his head.
Okay, which one does he
He's got no brain.
Okay, I assume Spock's brain.
It's the one when he gets is it This Side of Paradise? Where he gets like the flower stuff in his face.
Oh, I don't know.
And he eats meat.
It didn't look like that episode to me, but I mean, I don't remember it well enough to say it. to say
I feel like that episode he goes kind of crazy.
But regardless, that line's meant to be like a bit of foreshadowing that Sentinel Prime's going to be the villain because Spock went crazy, you know. So they're being a bit cute.
They should have used mirror. They should have goatee Spock.
That's true.
Then we know that's not the right one.
And to be fair, Sentinel Prime does have something on his chin that looks kind of like hair. It's got like a dangly kind of.
Oh yeah, you're right. He's got a goatee. That's how you know it was there the whole time.
Yep. They even mentioned what vehicle he was. He's like a rescue truck of some kind. It's not like a fire truck. It's like a, I don't know, like a, I don't know, some vehicle that you would send.
Some red thing.
Yeah. Some red thing. That's your.
Is he like an ambulance?
What's that referencing?
Nothing. Oh. I just like saying ambulance.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's Dark of the Moon. We should rate it. Tara, what you giving Transformers Dark of the Moon?
I was thinking like a 4, but then it would be the same rating I gave Blade Runner, and that feels wrong. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I didn't go that low on Blade Runner. Like I
can't remember if I did 4 or 4.5, but I know I did right below 5. So I think I'm gonna do a 3.5, just so it's Blade Runner's a little bit higher.
What did I give the last two? So I think the last one I gave like a 2 or something like that.
I gave it a 1.
First one I gave maybe like a 5. Yeah, 5.5, something like that.
I think we both gave that one a 5.
Yeah. I think it's closer to 1 than 2. Some things are arguably better than 1, but other things feel harder to get through because now it's like, oh shit, we're doing this for the third time. And, you know, characters like Ken Jeong's character,
it's way too long.
Some of the other stuff. I would, I don't know, I think a 4 feels kind of right to me.
Fine, give it the Blade Runner score.
That's not my Blade Runner score, though. And I don't even like Blade Runner that much, but Blade Runner's technical quality does get it to like a 6. Like, let's not be fools here.
I'll review Blade Runner again one day.
Bump it up to like a middling score.
Maybe a 5 at least.
Yeah, I don't think it. I mean, I don't like Blade Runner, and I've tried a lot to like it, but it's not in like actual bad movie territory.
It does have great atmosphere and music and whatever settings.
Yeah, yes, and whatever. Yeah.
I thought, well, if I give it anything higher than a 5, then it means I like it, and I don't. So I think I just went like right below 5.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go 4. 4 out of 10 for me. It's. Yeah, that feels right. Okay. Well, there you go. That's Transformers Dark of the Moon. We went long on this review, but still not as long as the movie.
Yeah. What's the next one? It's not Age of Extinction. What's the next Ace movie?
Oh, yeah. Well, the next Transformers movie is Age of Extinction, yes. The next Ace movie, before we get to that, though, is a vote winner that we haven't gotten to yet, and that is, and we deliberately picked a vote with 3 good movies so that we definitely watch a good movie in between these Transformers movies. So next week we will be talking about The Martian. So
thank God.
Yeah. So
I already know how I feel about that movie.
Excellent. So that's what's
Even-
coming next week.
Even our patron bonus movie was really hard to get through. I'm like, oh, and then we gotta
That's
watch
true.
Transformers.
Yeah, it's true. We did Species 3 as a Patreon bonus episode, and it was
bad.
it was a chore. But that's a good segue because every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or as a YouTube member, if you would want to join that way instead, there's a bonus episode, and we do some of the more lesser known sequels to things on there. Sometimes we'll do sort of B movies that are, and there's occasionally more well known things like we did Time Cop back in the day and stuff like that. But there's almost 50 bonus episodes now in the catalogue you get access to. Tara, I really have to question leaning into the mic when you yawn. It's a bold choice.
I want to wait.
On camera, it looks like you're going towards it.
Oh, I went. Maybe I did. I don't know. I'm tired.
But can I recommend taking a step back instead of going to the side?
I was trying to hide my face a little bit.
Well, you failed miserably then.
I truly thought I was being polite. But my brain is broke because I watched Transformers.
Anyway, yeah, so bonus episode on a monthly basis, and at the $5 tier and up, you get Meltdown, which is a show where we and Tara just talk about all the different random movies we've been watching. Not sci-fi
right.
specifically, but we do a sci-fi quiz for each other at the start of the show of that, and then we talk about all our different random movies. So if you like the idea of those two bonus shows, you can get them both at the $5 and up tier on Patreon. So plus there's also bonuses, of course, for the other shows like Collector's Cut and Screams After Midnight and other stuff to look at and all that stuff. So go and have a look and support us in any way you can. Of course, if you can't support us with some monies, that's okay. You can like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. You can share us on social media. You can do, whatever. Watching, commenting, all that stuff helps out a lot. It really does. So that is the show. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. This has been Transformers Dark of the Moon. 2 more to go before the new one.
Oh boy.
The new one may not be bad.
There was a trailer and it didn't look terrible.
Certainly the bar is relatively low,
And it's not Michael Bay, so we have that to look forward to.
We do.
I legit like Creed 2 a lot, so.
That's true. I might
Here's
even...
hoping.
I'm not going to promise I'll do this, but I might even rewatch Bumblebee before I go see the new one.
Yeah, I'm good.
Because I don't remember it that well, and I feel like just for comparison's sake, it'd be nice if one of us had a fresh memory of that movie before we talk
Haley
about the new one.
Steinfeld, and she was a diver. She dove off of a thing in front of her classmates.
I forgot she was a diver. You remember more than I do.
I remember that because I remember that being really silly.
I remember John
Those Mean
Cena.
Girls.
I remember
Yes.
Mean Girls. Yeah, there was Mean Girls. I remember that. But yeah.
I remember John Cena now that you mention him.
Yeah, and the reason why we're not reviewing Bumblebee because we already did that. In fact, Bumblebee was our second ever episode.
Yeah, so like 4 years ago.
Yeah. So you can go back and check that out if you want. But it'll be in the playlist in the right place once we've done the 5 that have already come out. But
You see how short my hair was.
that is the show. Yeah. So yeah, that is us. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer add salsa.